A group of Trump administration intelligence officials are on Capitol Hill today, briefing members of Congress on election security. At the closed-door meeting, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, was joined by the heads of the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and NSA Cyber Command. Well, the briefing comes at the request of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's pushed for a massive overhaul to increase election security ahead of 2020 and to ensure that there is no foreign interference. CBS News intelligence and national security reporter Olivia Gazis joins us now from Washington. So, Olivia, this briefing will take place behind closed doors, but we know Coats and Wray have addressed the threat of election security in the past. What do you think are some of the points that they want to outline to Congress?
You're right, Rena. So this is a closed briefing and is happening for the House as we speak. But several sources have already indicated to me that this is going to be something of a fulsome update on what these various agencies are doing and are posturing themselves to do ahead of the 2020 elections. This is not an update on an incident or breach of any systems. There's been no indication of that. In fact, last month, the White House offered a briefing that featured no less than 7 senior officials from law enforcement and intelligence agencies. And the major takeaways there were that, 1, election infrastructure remains a potential target for cyber actors, state and non-state. 2, that they continue to see actors attempt these suspicious and malicious activities against election infrastructure. But crucially, 3, again, that there has been no indication that any foreign adversary has successfully disrupted anything, including voting machines. And the other part of this, of course, just quickly, there is the question of continued incursions on social media from the likes of Russia, which seeks to pit Americans against one another, and also from China and Iran, which are using different outlets to influence the U.S. political environment and promote their interests. So that's what I expect lawmakers are going to hear about, and I'm told we'll also probably get a statement from the Director of National Intelligence later today.
So we know that there are state and non-state actors out there that are trying to disrupt. We've had briefings on this. We know this. But what's the action being taken? You know, there are various pieces of legislation that have been proposed to secure elections. But what's the Department of Homeland Security doing? And is there anything definitive and concrete?
You're right. There have been something like 30 separate election security bills already introduced this Congress, many of which haven't made it too far. But the Department of Homeland Security is very much a focal point of all of this because it, in particular, is charged with helping state and local governments shore up their defenses and implement best practices. So it's taken a variety of steps, including elevating this agency called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency that looks specifically at things like voting machines, registration databases, and the IT systems that are used for counting and auditing that underlie all of those things. But still, DHS is hamstrung by a few elements. First, it's got a lot to do in a short amount of time. An Inspector General report that was out earlier this year said that DHS had made meaningful progress in doing all of this, but it was suffering from predictable things like staffing shortages. It needed to do more to make sure that voting systems were secure and that local officials were effectively read in on all of the issues. But the second and kind of most important component of this is that DHS can really only recommend those best practices and facilitate information flows. It still remains very much up to the state and local governments to set up and run their own elections. Just recently, a Texas county purchased a voting machine that doesn't have an auditable paper trail, which is decidedly not best practice, but it underscores the fact that this is really not the federal government's choice.
You know, we know the House passed a bill last month aimed at securing elections. One of the many things that we've been talking about, it mandated that you've got to use backup paper ballots, audit votes after election. But, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell came out and signaled that this bill is not going to see the light of day. Why is that, Olivia?
It's true, and the Senate Majority Leader has long articulated this kind of ideological argument that the federal government should not get overly involved in election administration. Just this morning, Senator McConnell, in fact, gave a floor speech in which he first accused Democrats of sort of politicizing the issue, and then also said that Congress would continue to assess whether future legislative steps were going to be needed. He said, curiously today, that he wanted to hear from the experts, but that's a little bit perplexing, if only because, experts have certainly spoken, and a lot of those best practices we know are established fact. Election security is boosted by auditable records. It is boosted by a paper trail. It no doubt could benefit from greater funding across the board. Overall, what many of the officials at the forefront of this effort keep stressing is that no single locality is going to be able to face the sheer variety of challenges on its own. You know, there's the information side, the cybersecurity side, the infrastructure side. There's just too much that can go wrong when an adversary like Russia leverages a whole government's worth of resources to interfere in what are state and local processes.
All right, Olivia Gazis, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Rena.